question, will the monarchy survive the century? My Mark Meets guest is showbiz royalty, former Bond girl, star of children's TV show Magpie and many other hits. Jenny Hanley is live after 10. Also, Jenny has interviewed Prince Charles, Princess Anne and had a strange encounter with the Queen herself. You won't want to miss her amazing story. In the news agenda with my panel, should the royals have paid for the Jubilee celebrations out of their own pockets? Also, are headphones in public a nuisance? And what objects have you found after a long time? For me, it was this bow tie. In my big opinion, sorry, Prince William, but spare me the climate lecture. OK, folks, get the kettle on, polish your tiara, and I'll see you after the headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Thanks, Mark. I am Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The Queen says she is humbled and deeply touched by the nation's reaction to her Platinum Jubilee. Her Majesty made an appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace at the finale of her Jubilee celebrations, along with senior members of the royal family. Today's festivities involved a 2-mile-long carnival procession, which featured the carriage which carried the Queen to her coronation in 1953. There it is. In a written message, the Queen says she remains committed to serving the UK and Commonwealth to the best of her ability. And Prince Louis's antics stole the show again today. The 4-year-old danced, made faces and pulled his cousin Mia Tyndall's hair during the parade, before he finally retreated to the safety of his grandfather Prince Charles's lap. Millions of Britons have gathered for street parties across the UK to celebrate the Queen's 70-year reign. One big Jubilee lunch in the village of Long Sutton in Hampshire was treated to a Chinook flyover by the local RAF. Well, more than 85,000 events took place today, with the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall toasting Her Majesty at the Oval Cricket Ground in South London. In other news, the Independent Office for Police Conduct is investigating the death of a man in London after he was tasered by officers. The man in his 40s fell into the River Thames yesterday when police tried to detain him. He was taken to hospital in a critical condition, but later died. Police say at least 5 guns were used in the latest mass shooting in the US. CCTV footage shows the moment a gunman opened fire last night on a busy street in Philadelphia. 3 people were killed and 12 others injured in the attack. There have been 239 mass shootings in America so far this year. That's according to the charity Gun Violence Archive. Ukraine's president has visited frontline troops in the southeast of the country, thanking them for their service and holding a minute's silence for fallen soldiers. It's as the country's capital, Kyiv, came under a renewed assault for the first time in weeks. Officials say several explosions overnight appeared to be targeting the city's rail network. Meanwhile, President Vladimir Putin is threatening to strike new targets if the US supplies long-range missiles and rocket systems to Ukraine. And Wales have ended Ukraine's dreams of playing in the World Cup final in Qatar later this year. The Ukrainian football team began the playoff final in Cardiff, draped in their country's flag. But they lost 1-0 to Wales, who will now face England, Iran and the USA. It's the first time the Welsh side will play in a World Cup since 1958. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Mark.
Many thanks to Bethany, who returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight, and a final special evening of Jubilee celebrations we have in store for you. In the big question, will the monarchy survive the century? I certainly hope it does, but will it? We'll put that question to former top BBC royal correspondent Michael Cole, a man who was also chief spokesman for Mohammed Al Fayed. In the news agenda with my panel, Should the royals have paid for the Jubilee celebrations out of their own pocket? Also, are headphones in public a nuisance? And what objects have you found after a long time? Reacting to those stories and many more, including the papers at 10:30, are my fantastic panel of Ingrid Tarrant, journalist, presenter and radio host. Also star of Love Island 2021, broadcaster and presenter Amy Day. And an old friend of mine, Dr. Rakib Ehsan, senior data analyst for the Centre for Social Care and political commentator. My Mark Meets guest is showbiz royalty, a former Bond girl, star of children's TV show Magpie and many other hits, Jenny Hanley. Jenny has also interviewed Prince Charles, Princess Anne, and had an unusual encounter with the Queen herself. We'll talk about her amazing career after 10. Also after 10, I'll be doing a mini monologue. My take at 10, you won't want to miss it. The GBNews employee who was thrown out of a barber shop for working for this channel. You'll get my hot take at 10. You won't want to miss it. And I want to hear from you throughout the show. Mark at gbnews.uk. What is the best part of my show? What is that? I hear you cry. It's when you get in touch. So get those emails coming, Mark at gbnews.uk. And this show has a golden rule. You know what that rule is. We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. So for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and a big celebration of Her Majesty the Queen. And always big opinions. Let's start with this one. I caught up with last night's Jubilee concert and they put on a great show. Brian May hit the right note as Queen celebrated the Queen. Musical genius Elton John was pitch perfect as always, with the Rocket Man's face blasted onto the front of Buckingham Palace. It was good to have Craig David back and still in show business, surprisingly. I thought he was a painter and decorator now. And Diana Ross did her best Charlie Chaplin impression, miming through her greatest hits. It was the best silent movie I've seen since The Tramp. And Duran Duran were great too, although I preferred them on cocaine. Comedians Stephen Fry and Lee Mack raised the roof with big laughs, and Prince Charles spoke movingly about not just mummy, but his dear papa. Charles is sharing a lot more emotion and humanity these days, and more of that will serve him well as king. Brilliantly staged, the concert was overall a wonderful success. I agree with the political commentator and academic Matt Goodwin, who tweeted the following. He said, "This is the best show on the planet, and it is the very best of Britain. Confident, funny, cheeky, optimistic, diverse, modern, traditional, majestic, all rolled into one. I don't think anybody else could pull this off. Thank you, Your Majesty, #Platinum Jubilee." But during every concert, there's always a good time, isn't there, to pop to the loo. And last night, that would have been when Prince William hit the stage. This rightly popular and respected royal just had to say a few words about his amazing grandmother, and we would have been left with eager anticipation of this young man ultimately taking the throne. Bring on King William, we would have said. Compared to his turncoat and disloyal brother Harry, William has cut a dignified and discreet figure in the wake of Megxit and the whole royal soap opera. But last night, William, the patron of the Football Association, dropped the ball and scored a massive own goal by lecturing us on climate change, big tech, and the billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry. Here's what he had to say. Prepare to be bored.
The pressing need to protect and restore our planet has never been more urgent. But, like her, I am an optimist. Decades of making the case for taking better care of our world has meant that environmental issues are now at the top of the global agenda.
This globe-trotting royal, the epitome of privilege, decided to take the moment of his grandmother's jubilee to deliver a sermon on climate change. This high-profile member of the elite, who travels everywhere by private jet, is in no position to wag his finger at the British public, who are struggling to make ends meet with the cost of living crisis partly caused by green policies, of which he is doubtless a proponent. This Range Rover driving aristocrat with access to a private train, helicopters and multiple vast properties has clearly been drinking the climate Kool-Aid. It seems that there are many powerful voices globally who want to pursue a land grab of our rights and to dictate our way of life via things like a global pandemic treaty, which would allow an unelected cabal to lock down the country anytime they wanted. And they would no doubt like such powers for the climate too. Stay home to save the planet. I can see the posters now. It's what has been characterised by many as the Great Reset, using the pandemic as an excuse to reshape our economy, our society and our way of life. Well, if Prince William is going to sign up to create a technocratic dystopia, then I might suggest a great reset of our constitution and the scrapping of the monarchy, if this is what it's going to look like. The magic of the Queen is that she has kept her counsel for 7 decades. I like this quote from The Guardian's Zoe Williams. She wrote, "Today, in an age where permanently having an opinion is fetishised, the Queen is perhaps the last person whose opinions remain sacredly unknown." Sacredly unknown. Beautifully put. And following his tedious speech last night, we already know far too much about what this young man thinks. Our next king but one can do one. I'm all for cleaning up the planet and getting our carbon footprint down. A climate denier, I ain't. Who doesn't want to see investment in the thriving green economy in which British technology is world class? Who doesn't want clean air and who doesn't want to address rising temperatures? But with Britain's proportionally low carbon footprint, 1% of all emissions globally at the moment, perhaps woke William should focus his attention on the United States, Brazil, India. Why doesn't he go to China and lecture them? Perhaps he could do a speech at Tiananmen Square. Good luck with that. This political intervention last night, during a party and a day of national celebration, was about as welcome as Alec Baldwin at a shooting range. And it was an insult to the millions of Brits who are struggling financially, in particular with their energy bills, which have been inflated by up to 25% as a result of green levies. And now I'm guessing the Prince wants hard-working Brits to pay more taxes, have a worse standard of living, unlike him, fined 35 grand for an electric car you can't charge anywhere, and fined 20 grand for an unreliable heat pump boiler that wouldn't warm a single wing in one of his mansions. In what was a definitive game of woke bingo, he mentioned the environment, technology companies, and the vaccines. Of course he did. Is the Prince, in fact, a puppet of the World Economic Forum, or the World Hell Organization, as I like to call them? I hope not. But he's ticking all the right boxes: the green lobby, big tech, and big pharma. Royals, in my view, are like Victorian children. They should be seen and not heard. Now, I like Prince William and I support the monarchy fully. I love our monarchy, but only in its current state. I'd like to gently remind William that he is unelected and has no right to get involved in the scientifically debatable and politically contentious climate debate. Now, I don't mind politicians banging on about the environment because it is a political issue. But as with COVID, measures to tackle climate change will have a huge impact on people's lives, which is why it must be debated in a democratic forum by elected officials accountable to you and me. Plus, in my view, the so-called experts got it badly wrong on lockdowns. In a few years' time, I suspect you won't find anyone that admits to having supported them. Not many do now. Can we be so sure that mainstream science is right about climate? I personally don't know, but my mind is open. And I certainly won't be told what to think by the BBC, Sky News, Gary Lineker, Meghan Markle, or millionaire eco-warrior, the new swampy but with less hair, Prince William? For many, the journey from royalist to Republican will be a short one if William keeps going with this crap. I'm sorry, sir, but may I humbly suggest you put a right royal sock in it. Was William right to make a speech about climate change during the Queen's Jubilee celebrations? What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. If you think he was right to flag up the issue of climate change, let me know. It's all about opinions on this show. Which brings me to my all-star panel. So excited to welcome the following TV presenter, national treasure no less, the wonderful Ingrid Tarrant. Also, influencer and star of Love Island. Brand new to the show, a warm welcome to Amy Day. And I'm also delighted to welcome an old pal of mine, political commentator, Dr. Rakib Ehsan. Great to have all three of you with me. Amy, first of all, did you see the concert last night?
I watched bits of it on TV.
Yeah, what was your verdict? Because I thought it was a good show, but I just thought that Prince William was the party pooper.
Right, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I feel like I'm on a panel full of people that are going to disagree with me. I thought he was just, as you said, as he said, he was trying to be optimistic. It had to have a little bit of a soppy moment, call me a sop, but, you know, it was nice to be reflective. I guess he was just trying to be seen doing good.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he's coming from a good place, Amy. And as I've said in my big opinion, this is not really character assassination. I like the guy, and I think that he's been very discreet and very respectful in the last few years, particularly during the royal soap opera with Harry and Meghan. I think he's got a gorgeous family, and I'm sure he'll be a good king. But the genius of the Queen, Amy, is that we never knew what she thought, and that appears to be the opposite with Prince William.
Do we think that William was saying that on behalf of the Queen?
Well, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, you know, the Queen is a very shrewd political operator, and certainly in the past she has found ways of getting her message out there. She just said something impromptu to a cameraman in the run-up to the Scottish independence referendum, and she said Scots should think carefully, which many thought was a nod to the Union and for people in Scotland to vote to stay. But it's an important question, isn't it? Rakib, what's your view? Was this speech appropriate on a day of celebration?
I don't think it was appropriate, Mark. I think that the intervention was ill-timed. And to be honest, I think in these times of economic difficulty, which is being experienced by many of our fellow citizens, they don't really need to be lectured on matters of environmental sustainability. I think that in recent times we've seen this wave of eco-radicalism, which is very top-down. Often it's being preached by people who, if you look at their own personal carbon footprints, they're not doing a very good job on the environmental sustainability front. Britain, more broadly, you made the point earlier about our relatively low carbon emissions. Britain is, when it comes to environmental protection, it's one of the highest performing countries in the world. If not, it is probably the highest performing major country in the industrialised world. So when you look at, for example, net zero policies, which would disproportionately impact negatively on working class communities in the UK, I felt that the intervention yesterday was ill-timed. And to be honest, those kind of political interventions, the long weekend for the Platinum Jubilee, it was an opportunity for people to forget about those kind of issues, to relax, to come together and celebrate the Queen's magnificent 7-decade reign. So I felt that the intervention was unnecessary, in my view.
Ingrid Tarrant, Amy Day raises an interesting point. It's unlikely that Prince William would have made this speech without the Queen's blessing.
It's difficult because I cannot, for one single second, imagine that the Queen would have sanctioned that and agreed to it. But maybe there's a little bit of manipulation going on here, a little bit, because over the last couple of years, there's been a real, amongst the 18 to 24-year-olds, the majority, or very close to the majority, would not like to see the monarchy continue. Now, climate change is quite a cool thing to do. You talk about cool climate change, you know, with William and everything. I mean, to me, that was like sour, you know, a cool climate aid, I think you called it. And I'm thinking it's all like a sour lemonade in such. But maybe there was a little bit of encouragement because he has got to appeal perhaps to the younger generation who all seem to be so into the climate change thing and sort of like, oh, he's on our side, he's like us. So he's being cool in that sort of respect. So maybe there was a little bit of agreement. But irrespective, it was completely inappropriate. Wrong timing, wrong place. This was a day to celebrate and think about all the wonderful things in life and not this pressing issue that is weighing quite heavily on a lot of people's minds at the moment.
Although, Amy, perhaps he would argue the planet's on fire, I've got a platform, I must speak out.
Exactly. I do, now that I've raised that question of did he say it on behalf of the Queen, I do agree with that now. That's kind of playing in my mind now.
Well, a fascinating conversation. What is your view, Mark, at gbnews.uk? Did Prince William go too far by doing a speech on climate change at the Jubilee celebrations? Let me know, Mark, at gbnews.uk. We've got such a busy show. A former Bond girl is with us after 10. And also, looking forward to this, we're going to speak to Phil Campion, SAS hero, TV presenter, best-selling author, on the importance of the Queen to the military in this country. And in our news agenda discussion, lots to get through, including should the royals have paid for the Jubilee celebrations out of their own pocket? And also, looking forward to this particular conversation, headphone etiquette. Are people that wear headphones in public a nuisance? On bicycles, on scooters, crossing the road, in shops? Let me know your thoughts. We'll discuss that in the second hour of the show. Lots to get through. Next up in The Big Question, will the monarchy survive the century? We'll speak to a top former royal correspondent. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The email reaction to my Big Opinion monologue is flooding in. You'll be able to re-watch my Big Opinion on Twitter in the next couple of minutes. Sammy in our digital team is currently crafting it into a video. But let's have a look at your reaction. Tim says, Mark, this speech at the celebrations was totally inappropriate. It was a piece of propaganda, says Tim. How about this from Sean? William claims the world is on fire. It's June the bloody 6th, and we've got our gas fire on tonight. Pants on fire, more like. Beautifully put. Bit of poetry. Nice job, Sean. How about this from Fiona? Well said, Mark. I do agree that Prince William should not have been politicising. This was ill-timed and inappropriate. He should have been celebrating the Queen. Fiona, thank you for that. What's your view? Do you think that he was right to use his platform, given his concerns and the concerns of mainstream science, that the planet's in trouble? Let me know. Mark at gbnews.uk. It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Tonight, following 4 days of glorious Jubilee celebrations, the monarchy has never felt so popular. But on that sad occasion when the Queen ultimately passes, hopefully a very long time from now, will Charles be able to fill Elizabeth's capacious boots? And with the throne ultimately being handed down to William and then George, will the monarchy survive this century? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome former royal correspondent at the BBC, Michael Cole. Also, former mayoress of Windsor and Maidenhead, Nahid Majid, and CEO of Republic, who are a pro-Republic organisation. They want to get rid of the monarchy, Graham Smith. Graham, nice to have you on the show. Let's start with you. Do you think the monarchy will survive the century?
Good evening, Mark. Well, I think its chances are dwindling. I mean, we are faced with a century of aging men. I mean, Charles is obviously already in his 70s. If he lives as long as his mum, then William will be in his 60s, if not 70s, before he gets onto the throne. And if he lives as long as his grandmother, then George will also be in his 60s before he gets on the throne. And, you know, you said that it feels like it's never been more popular. The polling actually shows a sharp drop over the last few years from 75% to 60%. One poll showed a jump in support for abolition from 20 to 27%. Most people in another poll were not particularly interested in the Jubilee. So, you know, there is a slow puncture of support. And if the Queen is unable to keep that support up at 70 plus, then Charles certainly isn't the person to turn it around. Because one of the things, I didn't come on this programme expecting to agree with you on much, Mark, but on the issue of William talking about the environment, I mean, he should keep his views to himself, not least because he's a huge hypocrite on the issue. But the same is true of his father, Charles. And, you know, they speak their mind, they say what they think, and that immediately divides opinion and is going to make them less popular.
Do you think that events will cause or create the extinction of the royal family of our monarchy? I mean, what do you think needs to happen? Because surely, if they continue the way they're going, Graham, they will still be here in 100 years' time.
Well, I mean, if support keeps dropping, which I think it will after the end of the Queen's reign, then at some point there's going to need to be a very serious debate about what happens and a political decision to either go straight to a republic or to have a referendum on the question. We're already seeing most of the Commonwealth countries that still have the Queen as head of state going down that path. That's going to also inspire people to talk about it and to see what the alternative is like. So, you know, there is going to be a debate. There's going to need to be political decisions made on this, and hopefully, at some point, we will be able to choose to get rid of the monarchy and then choose our head of state.
Graham Smith, like a lot of British traditions, the royal family, the monarchy, is a bonkers idea on paper, but it just kind of works, doesn't it? Do we really want a republic and a president that would probably be a clapped-out ex-politician or celebrity?
I mean, it depends on what you mean by clapped out, really, because I mean we're heading
Gordon
to clapped
Brown,
out kings.
Tony Blair, David Cameron, Nick Clegg.
Well, no, because if you look at what the monarchy actually does, and you say it works, and who does it work for? It works for the politicians. Constitutionally, it puts a lot of power in the hands of the Prime Minister, and what we really want is a republic where there is a greater sort of division of power, real checks and balances, and a head of state not like in France or the US, but a head of state like in Ireland or Iceland or Finland, places where, you know, this works really well. And these countries have elected heads of state who aren't political, they aren't running the country, and they have polling ratings as high as the Queen.
Well, I'm delighted also to welcome Michael Cole, who is a former royal correspondent at the BBC, a former chief spokesman for Mohammed Al-Fayed as well, broadcaster and writer. Michael, great to have you on the show. Do you think that the point made by Graham has some resonance there? Popularity is dropping. The royals are on borrowed time.
I like Graham. I've spoken to him in the past. He has a perfectly respectable opinion, but he's terribly wrong on this thing. You know, there's nothing intrinsically modern about a republic. When the republics in ancient Rome became corrupt, they replaced them with what? They replaced them with a monarchy. And in this case, in this country, the Queen, yes, she's 96, but her mother lived to 101. The apple doesn't fall very far from the royal tree. I think when we sing God Save the Queen, we should really mean it. But we shouldn't be afraid of a short reign. Obviously, when Prince Charles comes to the throne, if and when he does, it will be a short reign. But then Edward VII was a short reign of just barely 10 years, but the Edwardian age is looked back on as a golden age. People were happy, they were prosperous. And you know, in the trenches of the First World War, the Tommies there said this wouldn't have happened if King Teddy had been alive, because they felt that he knew all his relatives in the royal houses of Europe and he would have stopped it happening. So soft power being applied through the chancelleries of Europe might have stopped that war. Monarchies have their uses, and we've seen it brilliantly this weekend. Nobody can say that this was not an unalloyed triumph for the crown, for the country, for the Commonwealth, and for the Queen. And bear in mind that these pictures went round the world. This country, its economy benefited, and it was also a triumph for our business, can I put it like that, for television, because the coronation kick-started the television age, and 70 years later, television has done a brilliant job for the Queen, and it was a triumph. Nobody in their right mind, being objective, can say that there was anything other than a magnificent 4 days, which has been brilliantly carried off by this country and by its broadcasters. So I think the monarchy is in fine fettle. And interestingly, Graham says he's 62%. There's not a politician in the Western world, in a democracy, that wouldn't kill for an approval rating of 62%. When I was at the BBC as the royal correspondent, the figure was 80%. Well, you don't get that outside North Korea or Russia, anywhere else.
Well,
so the Queen is
yes.
particularly popular. No, it's absolutely true. Those are your figures. You commissioned that poll, 62%. I mean, what is the current Prime Minister or the current President of France or any other country? They would all aspire to such a figure. So quite often, the monarchy has been written off. But don't forget, the Queen traces her ancestry back to Alfred the Great. And she's seen everything. She's been through everything. And when you have a monarch and you have someone like the Queen Elizabeth II, you can only say, and the whole world has said it loud and clear, what a wonderful head of state she is. And I'll tell you one thing. A place like Canada, during the Watergate scandal, which went on 18 months and paralyzed the country, it was paralyzed because the head of state, Nixon, was also the commander-in-chief. And nothing happened. The Canadians looked down and said, thank goodness we've got a head of state who's removed from dirty politics, who we can respect. And also a head of state speaks fluent French. She bound together Canada just as surely as the Canadian National and Pacific Railways did. She was the force. And even young Trudeau has acknowledged, as have other people, how positive she has been in the Commonwealth, creating the transition from the British Empire to a Commonwealth of 54 nations, all of whom respect and love her.
Former Mayoress of Windsor and Maidenhead, Naheed Majid, welcome to the show. You are by far the most reverend and decorated member of my panel tonight. What's your view on whether the monarchy can survive the century?
I mean, the monarchy is a resilient institution and it will continue to survive because it's an integral part of the fabric of our country. And it's got an amazingly huge international draw for tourists. And if you look at the monarchy, it's probably one of the strongest symbols of our country. That's not going to disappear anytime soon. And you look at the outpouring of love and affection shown to our monarch over the last 4 days. And yes, partly that's because we have an amazing, monarch at the moment, the Majesty. But I strongly believe that will continue with the future monarchs. And part of that will be William and Kate. It will reignite the youth interest. The monarchy, for me, it signifies unity, community, tradition and customs. The way you saw over the last 4 days and the reign of, during the Queen's time, it brings all communities together. And that's something quite strong. Whether there's something of a sorrow or joy, it's the communities combined together that the royal family bring together. And I think that's a really important point to make.
Former mayoress, do you think that the monarchy can survive another Megxit or another Prince Andrew?
Interestingly, I remember during the outpouring of grief when Princess Diana died, and I was at school, and there was various teachers talking about this is the end of the monarchy. The monarchy cannot possibly survive what's happened with Princess Diana and the death of Princess Diana. Yet 25 years later, we're still, the monarchy is still there, and part of that is because how endearing the Queen is. Yes, it's a difficult time at the moment with Prince Andrew and Harry and Meghan, but these situations have happened throughout the monarchies, throughout the time. It really is a resilient institution, and I think it will just continue to thrive with the next monarch, and the next monarch will make it their own role as well.
However, Nahid, the monarchy are wildly expensive. An elected president would be far cheaper, which is pretty appropriate during a cost of living crisis.
But when you look at it, how much they bring in millions from a tourist perspective. Neighbouring, obviously, I'm from the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. It brings in thousands and millions of pounds every year just in Windsor alone. But you look at the Buckingham Palace and all the palaces, that draw isn't going to be with the head of state. It's with the monarchy. It signifies tradition and custom, and we're absolutely brilliant at it. The last 4 days shows how great we are at putting on that show, and that can only happen with having a strong monarchy there.
Graham Smith, Michael Cole mentioned soft diplomatic power. The Queen has huge global recognition too, doesn't she? When she visits the White House, when she goes to America, she stays in the White House, not at the Best Western round the corner. When she's in Paris, she's not at a Premier Inn or a Travelodge or the French equivalent. She's at the Élysée Palace. The Queen has star status, she's box office. You'll never get that with an elected president, will you?
That's what happens when you have state visits. I mean, they don't put up any head of state in the Premier Inn round the corner. I mean, this is a bit of a daft line of question.
Graham, you can't tell me that Washington don't make more of a fuss of the Queen of England or the Queen of the United Kingdom than they do of, the president of, some obscure European country like France.
When was the last time the Queen went to the US? I mean, it's been a very long time. The point is that this Queen...
It's a big deal when she goes, Graham.
Because she is the Queen of this country. There are 7 other monarchs in Europe. I mean, does anyone know them? Does anyone care who they are? No, so it's not the fact that they're queen, it's the fact that they're head of state of this country. So yes, a president of this country would be well known and would be well received. But let's just pick up on a couple of things, because the tourism thing is complete nonsense. There isn't a single shred of evidence that the monarchy is good for tourism. There isn't a single shred of evidence that is good for trade or for the economy at all. The figures have been looked at. I've spoken to Visit Britain about this, but it's not about this sort of fantasy about money coming in. It's about our democratic principles. We should base our constitution on what is right, not on what people enjoy doing on their holiday. We should base our institutions on the Nolan principles, like openness and transparency and accountability, which the royals fall down on every time. And we should have a constitution that does not centralize crown powers in the hands of the prime minister. So, there's no good argument for this that overwhelms the argument against the monarchy.
Michael, help me out with this. Tourist income from the royals is overstated. It's a myth, apparently.
These are terribly tired old arguments Graham is trotting out. 192 nations belong to the United Nations. They've all got heads of state, even Switzerland. Of course, nobody in Switzerland quite knows who the president of the Confederation is, but they do have one. Every country has a head of state. You have to be paid for. The cost of the British head of state, the royal family, is a mere fraction of what it costs to run the American presidency. But earlier, Mark, you made a fabulous point. No, hang on just a second. Earlier, you made a fabulous point about, imagine this country being faced with the presidential election, and you've got three candidates. Imagine Tony Blair, Richard Branson, Lenny Henry. I mean, a lot of people are going to go out in the street, hang themselves from the nearest lamppost rather than vote for any of those three.
These are the tired old arguments. These are the tired old arguments. You're saying that Britain cannot cope with doing something which Ireland does. You're saying that British people are too stupid to elect people in the way that the Icelandic people do.
Graham, who's the president of Ireland? Graham, who's the president of Ireland?
Michael D. Higgins.
Yeah, Graham, who's the president of Ireland?
Michael D. Higgins, and his poll ratings are in the 80s plus, and so was his predecessor, Mary McAleese. So, these countries have very, very popular heads of state, and these parliamentary republics, their heads of state cost a fraction of what ours costs. Ours costs like £345 million a year. The Irish president is less than £10 million a year. And for that, they get to elect their head of state, and they get brilliant heads of state who are really, really popular.
I take your point that the Irish president may be popular, but does not have fame on a global scale, soft diplomatic power, global recognition. The King of the United Kingdom, the Queen of the United Kingdom will always make waves internationally. You can't argue with that.
There's no evidence that our monarch makes any difference in terms of our diplomacy or trade. And the last time that we had royals going overseas, with Edward and William going to the Caribbean, they put their foot in it time and time again, and they caused a huge row. The royals do not make any difference our trade and to our diplomacy. We are a very successful country. We're prosperous even when we're going through difficult times at the moment. And that is because of the endeavours of ordinary British people up and down the country, not because of the occasional visit by a monarch to the United States.
But is the Queen and is the monarchy, Graham, not part of the UK's branding upon which you cannot place a price?
We are going to be absolutely fine without the monarchy. We do not need this one privileged, cosseted family living in these large houses in order to be a successful country which people sit up and take notice of.
It's part of our identity, isn't it? We've got the Beatles, we've got Shakespeare, we've got Charles Dickens, and we've got Her Majesty the Queen, Winston Churchill, Sir Elton John.
The Jubilee, you're talking about how
Ainsley Harriott
was 54%.
I'm struggling.
We're not interested. Only 11%. We're very interested. Only 14% were taking part. The support for the monarchy is dropping. It just isn't a fundamental part of our identity, and we can do without it. You're saying let's just keep these people going in this multi-million pound institution where they can do whatever they want. Charles interferes in politics behind closed doors. They spend huge amounts of public money, our money, on themselves every week. And what do we get for that when we could have an accountable democratic head of state and still be a brilliant country?
Nahid, the Queen is famously frugal. She keeps her cornflakes in Tupperware, and she's got a ring heater next to her in the morning when she eats her cornflakes and listens to her Roberts radio. She also agreed to pay income tax 2 decades ago and has reduced the civil list so that there are just a few key members of the royal family that actually receive an income.
Yeah, I completely agree. And she's moved on with times. She's seen the times of people suffering. And, a significant moment was last year when Prince Philip passed away. And that isolated figure sitting there on her own signified, I'm with you, with the rest of the nation. And that's a really, really, major point of her grieving on her own, because she knew the nation were grieving on their own. They couldn't attend funerals, and she was empathising. And no amount of other head of state, elected state, would give you that empathy, that feeling with what the rest of the state is feeling. Only a monarch, and a monarch like our Queen, can give us that.
The King or the Queen of the United Kingdom?
That is clearly
Graham?
untrue. I'm
Graham?
sorry. This is you just have a look at other heads of state. It is clearly untrue to suggest that someone has to be unaccountable and given the title of royalty to show empathy. I mean, that is just clearly not the case.
Graham, can I ask for your suggestions of possible presidents of the United Kingdom? Who would the runners and riders be?
Well, it would be whoever comes forward when we have the election. We're not going to have that anytime, in the next year or 5 years. But, the flip side of your argument is to suggest that in a country of 65 million people, the best person we can possibly find is Charles. And it just so happens by sheer fluke and good fortune that he is born into the job that he's going to get. I mean, that is not true. Clearly, if Ireland can choose someone out of a population of 5 million, we're going to be spoiled for choice of a population of 65 million. And if you say that's not the case, then either you're saying that we have no talent in this country, or you're saying that we're too stupid to find that talent and elect them. So, when people go on about patriotism and monarchy, I think it's far more patriotic to trust the people and to say that we are a great nation that will be spoiled for choice than to turn around and say that we can't possibly do it.
Briefly, Michael, the clock is against us. Your final thoughts on this?
The Crown is in very, very good hands. Republicanism is a busted flush because of one big word, glamour. And when you have Prince William, and we saw him today with his beautiful wife and his 3 lovely children, they have glamour. Nobody ever talks about this, but they do. I don't believe that the President of Iceland has glamour. The President of Ireland writes beautiful verse in Erse, but I can't read Erse, and I'm sure he's a commendable person. But this monarchy suits the British temperament. It always has, and it always will.
My sincere thanks to former top royal correspondent for the BBC, Michael Cole, former Mayoress of Windsor and Maidenhead, Naheed Majid, and the CEO of Republic, Graham Smith. Thank you so much for a fascinating debate. What's your view, Mark, at gbnews.uk? Will the monarchy survive this century? Well, next, it has been recommended or suggested on social media that the royals should have funded the Jubilee celebrations out of their own pocket. So should the royals have paid for the party this weekend? What do you think about that? We'll discuss that with my panel. And in the next hour, are headphones in public a nuisance? Also, what have you lost and then found many years later? And after 10, another mini monologue. This time on the GB News employee, literally thrown out of a barber's for working at this television network. My first comments on that story publicly at 10. I'll see you after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A healthy reaction on media to our debate about whether the royals will survive the century. This from Trevor. Mark, the principal value of the Queen is the fact that she transcends prime ministers and presidents. That is why they all value her counsel and are envious of her ability to join the dots. The royal family also generate considerably more money than they cost through tourism to the UK. Trevor, thank you for that. John says £6 a year each from the public, from a tax that you've already paid. I could spend that on wine and cheese. These are priceless too to our nation. Thank you for that. And last but not least, Chris, who says, yes, I'd like a republic, but why the hell do we need a president? Just have a proportional representation system and stick with that. As for the royals paying for themselves, great, it's our money they get. I will never understand how anyone is supposed to be better than anyone else just through birth. Well, Chris, that's a very good point, and we are most certainly equal in the eyes of God, whichever God you happen to worship. Now, it's estimated that this weekend's Jubilee celebrations will cost the British taxpayer around £1 billion. That's an eye-watering amount of cash by anyone's standards. According to the Office for National Statistics, there are nearly 32 million taxpayers in the UK, so each person is forking out 30 quid for this weekend's festivities. So at a time when the public are struggling to make ends meet, should the royals, who are mega wealthy themselves, be digging into their own pockets to pay for their celebrations? Amy?
Well, I actually learned that it wasn't coming out of the taxpayers' funds, and I would say that the money that is apparently paid by the taxpayers for this festivities was simply the festivities. So them going into town, having drinks, having food, because the monarchy actually, for the Jubilee celebrations, were fundraising money. They were sponsored by global companies like Jaguar, Lloyds Bank, and that's kind of how they paid for it. So I don't believe that they should have to pay for it all out of their own pocket.
And also, there will have been a massive boost for hospitality over the last 4 days. Billions will be pouring into the Treasury from the amount of beer we've been drinking.
Exactly, thank goodness.
Too right. I mean, listen, I don't know how much of that beer you've been drinking, Ingrid. Or
well, quite a bit.
white wine?
No, I can't bear wine. Actually, I'm a vodka shot girl.
Are you?
In fact, I don't like that much. Of course I am.
Let me tell you though, that is, I think by anyone's standards, that is too much. That's too much vodka.
It's not actually.
Hand it over.
It's not too much. I could do that
I mean,
one.
This is the question.
Peasy.
I mean, this feels to me like a petty, small-minded discussion.
Oh, it's pathetically petty and small-minded. So, actually, they don't think it'd be as much as a billion. So I've got little figures here. They reckon, actually, it'd be 778 million. I know that sounds absolutely absurd. And that does work out, between the taxpayers, probably about anything between 20 and 28 pounds a person for the whole year. But you're quite right, Amy. This didn't come from us, the taxpayer. They had partnership organisations, sponsors. The lottery put in 22 million. The government set aside 28 million, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Because I'm getting really angry about that. So there's no cost to taxpayers at all. And the amount that the public have spent at the weekend at the pubs, at the moment they've worked out in this last year, is, well, they calculated £1 to £2 billion. So therefore, we are actually on that sort of like 2 billion, probably more, and that's entertainment and all the rest of it. And 408 million revenue on everything associated with Jubilee. So it'd be the bunting, the flags, the this, that and the other, and all the rest of it. But they did say that you are losing a little bit with the 2 extra days off. Now, can I just go, sort of having said all that, so it really does divvy out, so really we're going to be in profit. And bear in mind that this will be sold to all the TV companies in the world, worldwide, and it was watched worldwide, like the wedding, all the weddings, the funerals and everything. So there's a huge amount of revenue that comes in from that.
And it's a massive advert for UK PLC.
Yes, as well. Absolutely. So they really look at it from a business point of view. This is a huge asset and it's a huge amount that goes into the Treasury coffers. Now, if people are complaining about the fact that they might have been paying for this, look at this. So the government, put all that aside, for Ukraine, let's just get this, from February, and we are now only just the beginning of June, they have given, I have to do the total, £3.325 billion to Ukraine.
Amazing.
I'll break this down. 1.3 million for supporting, including 300 million for equipment.
Right.
On top of the 1.5 billion, including 400 million for humanitarian aid, 700 million in world banking, 33.5 million to the UN for humanitarian, for health, food and shelter. What about us? What about the children here that are going to school on a Weetabix or they're having supper with a Weetabix and therefore they've eaten it
and what is
and no breakfast left?
The financial cost to the Treasury of the sanctions on Russia? Because those sanctions are not without cost to the UK. Absolutely, the knock-on effect. And can you believe that? Talking about the hypocrisy and talking about that, they've given them 74 million to support the public sector and also to help them towards their the fuel, so that they don't have to be dependent on Russia for their It's useful
gas.
to put these things up for comparison.
In perspective.
Or what about the cost of the Beeb? The Beeb's income annually is, I think, over £3 billion.
Yeah.
So that's a drop in the ocean. What we've seen in the last 4 days.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Rakib, you know, my team there have just been playing footage of a golden carriage. Do you not think the royals are a bit too opulent?
I think, in my view, it's important not to be too short-sighted when it comes to these kind of discussions. We need to look at the multiplier effect of obviously having these celebrations. And I think just looking at this is how much we've spent, but how has it benefited particular industries? You've obviously talked about a great deal of damage to hospitality over the course of the pandemic, especially with lockdown-related damage. It's a very timely boost for many industries and businesses across the country. But I look at it more broadly from a more civic perspective. I think that the Queen herself, over 7 decades, she's been a fantastic, magnificent symbol for national unity. And I think more than anything, the country, after the COVID-related trauma, I think that this was a really beneficial collective experience which helped to lift our national spirits.
Yes, well, I totally agree. My favourite quote is that a cynic knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. And I believe that the value of our monarchy and the value of our Queen is limitless and priceless. What do you think, Mark, at GBnews.uk? Very excited about the next hour. A former Bond girl is joining me on the show. And also, after this, I'll be doing another mini monologue, my reaction to the news that a GB News producer, was thrown out of the hairdressers for working for this television network. Find out why and get my take on that just after 10. Plus another Great British game show, and in our news agenda with the panel, are people that wear headphones in the public space, out and about, in the street, in shops, are they a nuisance? I'll see you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It is 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan tonight, our final Jubilee special celebrating 7 decades of Queen Elizabeth II. My Mark Meets guest is showbiz royalty, former Bond girl, star of children's TV show Magpie, remember that? And many other TV hits and a couple of horror films as well. Jenny Hanley is live later this hour. She's interviewed Prince Charles, Princess Anne and had an unusual encounter with the Queen herself. In the news agenda with my panel, are headphones a public nuisance? And what objects have you found after a long time? Plus a royal edition of the Great British Game Show and tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 with full panel reaction. After this, my take at 10, a high-profile critic of GB News. I give my reaction. Find out that story shortly, but first the headlines with Bethany Elsey. Going to iron out very shortly a really busy hour to come. We're going to talk about headphones in public because there is now a suggestion that there should be a law in place that cyclists and people on electric scooters should not wear headphones. That's certainly the case in Spain and France. So should we ban the wearing of headphones when you're at the wheel of a vehicle, when you're on a bicycle, or even when you're driving the car? Have you seen people in cars going around with headphones on? Quite bizarre. But are they a nuisance? I think they're a problem. I'm always bumping into people that have got headphones when they walk along in the street, and I think it's very noisy on public transport. So there you go, all of those stories and more to get through with my panel. You're watching Mark Dolan tonight. Big stories, big guests, big opinions, and this weekend a big celebration of Queen Elizabeth II and her amazing 7 decades on the throne. So we'll talk headphones, but we'll also have another Great British game show. Tonight's game show, based around the Windsors, we're going to play a game of Gen Royal Knowledge. That's right, this show is not just thrown together. And my Mark Meets guest, former Bond girl, Jenny Hadley. But it's first time for my Take at 10. Welcome to the age of intolerance. The highly talented GB News executive producer, Christian Mitchell, responsible for some of the best output on our channel, including the brilliant breakfast show, was having his hair cut during the week. I'm not going to lie, he's quite the dish, is our Christian, and there really is no improving on perfection. But he was being crimped nonetheless by a barber who asked all of the usual questions, like where do you live and have you got any holiday plans? So here's what happened next. Take a look at this tweet from Christian. I've just had a haircut end abruptly, leaving me with an uneven hairline after I said I worked for GB News. I won't name the salon as that's not fair to other professionals who work there. But blimey, take your politics out on someone else's hair? Outrageous. Well, this reaction from the hairdresser is puzzling. I doubt he has ever watched the channel. Our fiercest critics never have. If he had done so, he would know that we've got an amazingly diverse lineup. on screen in terms of background, social class, geography, religion, race, you name it, with a similarly diverse and talented team behind the camera. He would know that we have Brexiteers, Remainers, lefties, righties, and those in the middle. But it's a sign of the times and the very definition of cancel culture that a haircut can be interrupted because of your place of work. And I'd love to know what exactly our crime is here at GB News. Celebrating Britain, being patriotic, offering an alternative voice on the pandemic, on Brexit, on levelling up, on the cost of living crisis, on the culture wars, extreme political correctness, or climate change? If that's a crime, then bring it on. There's plenty more where that came from. Things have become so polarised that we can no longer accept a plurality of views. And these days, it's not enough to disagree with each other. Now, if you take a different view, you're the enemy and you're a bad person. This glosses over the fact that nobody has a monopoly on wisdom or the truth, which is why you'd better welcome other opinions. Listen to someone you disagree with. You might learn something, which is what we do here at GB News. This channel and my show, Mark Dolan Tonight, is all about opinions. The more the merrier. And as for this hairdresser, well, he deserves the hairdryer treatment for his Olympic-level rudeness. My colleague, Christian Mitchell, has had a brush with an idiot who deserves a short back and sides. Vidal Sassoon, you are not, my friend. So you can take your scissors, your hairdryer, and your curling tongs and shove them where the sun doesn't shine. Let's get panel reaction now. Ingrid Tarrant, Amy Day and Rakib Ehsan. Ingrid, what is your reaction to this? Christian Mitchell, he's getting his hair cut. They're having a chat. Where do you work? I work for GB News. Right, you're out the door. I just don't understand.
I totally don't understand it. What really worries me, Mark, is that if any one of us go out, or anyone that's appeared here as your guests on GB News and say, oh, you know, I'm a guest on GB News, Mark Dolan show and everything, I might be in a restaurant, and what are they going to do to my food in the kitchen? I mean, you know, are they going to piss in it, spit in it? What are they going to do? So it's very, very frightening that actually, although it's completely funny, and you have to laugh the fact that he's had a half-finished, it's half-cut haircut sort of thing, it's not funny if people harbour such negative attitudes. But you know, I would love, Mark, get that hairdresser, that barber, onto your show. It would be brilliant if he came on the panel. I'll come.
That's a really good idea, because my favourite people to have on the show are those who disagree with me, because it is all about opinions. And that's the point. But we struggle, don't we, Rakib, with discourse these days. And I sometimes think people don't want GB News to exist because they don't want our viewers to have a voice.
Oh, absolutely, Mark. I couldn't agree more. I suspect that barber probably hasn't watched very much of GB News' content. It really does show that some people, they really can't accept viewpoint diversity. We live in a democratic society. We should be welcoming of robust, honest conversations which include a diversity of opinions. I really don't want to live in a society, to be honest, where everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet. That'd be incredibly boring. And more than anything, life would be very unexciting if we were structured that way. So I do feel GB News in particular is actually bringing in different voices more than anything. Voices which are quite often marginalised in a cultural sense, views which aren't given the political attention that they deserve. So I think that the channel serves a very important purpose.
Amy Day, you are a star of reality TV, so you'll be very familiar with social media, where debate is impossible now.
Can I just first say I think it's an absolute crime that hairdresser allowed him to walk out looking that bad. But yeah, I completely... Out.
I think you should name and shame him, actually. I don't know why you don't. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
It was Nikki Clark. No, I'm only kidding.
Yeah. But I absolutely agree. Get him on the show. You know, I think this show is fantastic for having actual debates. People have different opinions. So, yeah, or someone should go and actually make him watch the show. Maybe he's not even watched the show. Maybe he got it mixed up with another show.
That's
Get him
right.
on the show.
You know, we've seen it, haven't we, Amy? People being cancelled for their political views. I know a very talented comedian, I'm going to name names, Alistair Williams, who lost a load of bookings as a comedian when he revealed on stage that he had voted for Brexit. I mean, what's the world coming to, Amy?
I don't know. I thought this years ago, Mark.
Yeah, too right. I mean, I don't know. Will things ever recover, Ingrid Tarrant? Will we ever have tolerance of other views? A brilliant point made by Andrew Doyle on last night's Headliners show when he said that there are too many people who can't get their head around the idea that they might be wrong, except that we're all human beings and there's the chance that we'll all be wrong.
In answer to your question, you know, will we ever tolerate, will we ever get back that, you know, healthy debate thing? Unfortunately, I don't think we ever will, as I have known it in my lifetime and as we've known it in the last, perhaps, 20 years. The nanny state, the doing the thinking for us. There's a whole generation that have been brought up with that. And there's very few, and I love the few that do think out of the box, that do look at the bigger picture and question things. But unfortunately, that is, I think, even now, that's a minority. So unless the minority can make a big enough noise and just give examples of, you know, open your eyes, wake up, this could happen otherwise. These are your options. Look at the options and then make an informed decision. I don't think people are going to really bother.
I agree. I mean, Rakib, briefly, if you can, I introduced that take at 10 with the expression, welcome to the age of intolerance. We're living in intolerant times. But this action was cruel as well, wasn't it?
It really was. It really was. And I think that whoever was responsible for this, it's just deeply unprofessional more than anything. And I think that irrespective of one's political view, you're there to provide a service at the end of the day. And I think to do that and to allow Christian to leave, well, mid-haircut, essentially, I think that person needs to have a very hard look at themselves from a professional perspective.
Well, yeah, and they've got enough mirrors because they're a hairdresser. They can.
Well, that's very true,
have
Mark. That's
that
a great
mirror
observation.
behind and at the back and.
And they
underneath.
never look at themselves in the mirror, do they, these people?
Too right. You're absolutely right. They could do with some proper self-examination. Well, thanks to my brilliant panel for that discussion. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport, business and beyond. Tonight, actress, model, TV presenter, she's done it all. Jenny Hanley starred in the classic James Bond film On Her Majesty's Secret Service. She was in The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes and the Hammer horror film Scars of Dracula. She also appeared in the 3D film The Flesh and Blood Show. Sounds like this programme. She also appeared in The Persuaders, Man About the House and The Return of the Saints, as well as the classic children's TV series Magpie on ITV. She's been in Dictionary Corner on Countdown and has had a long career in radio, most recently at the hugely popular Boom Radio, a national station on DAB. And I'm delighted to say that Jenny Hanley has also interviewed royalty, which makes this interview highly topical. Jenny, welcome to the show.
Hello, Mark.
Great to have you on the programme. You've interviewed Charles and Anne, haven't you?
Absolutely. Very lucky to have done so.
Now, Charles will have been a young man, perhaps in his 20s, early 30s?
I suppose early 30s, yes. In mid-70s, I suppose.
Amazing. And he was, of course, the Prince of Wales at that point, wasn't he? What did you make of the guy at that time?
Well, I have to say that Mick Robertson, the big, tall, curly-haired one, he did the interview mostly with Prince Charles about the Duke of Edinburgh Awards on a very cold day. And he was charming, he was attentive, he was informative, and he was freezing cold. So an equerry said, could you find some slow gin that we could put in the back of the chauffeur-driven car to heat him up when we leave here? And we thought, yeah, okay, that's doable.
Just what a wonderful royal secret. Did he seem like a sort of more awkward, stiff character at that point? You know, had he sort of properly bedded into the role, do you think?
I think truthfully, because it was Magpie and because it was a children's thing and there were lots of young people about, he was perfectly happy, he was perfectly relaxed. I was with the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, when she was opening a special place at Marwell Zoological Park. And unfortunately, I had a breastfeeding baby and a hyperactive toddler with me, and only just made the presentation line in time for the princess to come up. And she saw my discomfiture and she said, "Yes, I've always preferred horses."
Just brilliant. What a line. That's right. Anne is underestimated for her dry wit, isn't she?
Oh, she's got her father's wit and her father's intelligence, yes.
I know. I actually think, you know, if circumstances were different, I think she'd make a great queen herself. I feel that she's a chip off the old block.
Totally. She's dedicated. She will always be dependable.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And if you remember, she wasn't prepared to have that man in the Mall who came and burst into her car with a gun, and she told him to feck off and then kicked him.
And rightly so. I mean, you know, she doesn't mince her words, does she? As you say, just like her dear late beloved father, Philip, who was no stranger to choice language on occasions. Your encounter with the Queen was a case of mistaken identity, wasn't it, Jenny?
Yeah, that unfortunately was entirely my fault. It was the biggest children's party in the world is what we were trying to do in Hyde Park. And at that moment, I was waiting to be told that they were coming live to me, that I was in the children's tent. I had a tissue in my pocket, as you always do if you're working with children. Somebody sneezed, so I just sort of stretched behind me, said, "Bless you," and handed out the tissue. And this lovely bass laughter came, saying, "That's never happened before." And I tried to palm a tissue off on Her Majesty.
That's quite amazing. You've shared banter with Charles, Anne and the Queen. That's the Midas touch. You are brilliant with people, Jenny, and you're in the right business in broadcasting, aren't you?
I love it. I love meeting people and getting to know them, at least for that nanosecond, the same as you.
Yeah, I know. It's a great and very privileged job. Well, speaking of privileged jobs, 1969, and you're on set on a Bond film, and a classic at that, on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Did you have to audition for that role?
Dame Joanna Lumley and I basically say that we weren't really acting in that film. We were more set dressing. So we were up this mountain for, I don't know, about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, sitting about sort of posing and trying to look alluring while the plot went on around us. And I didn't have to do an audition because I was very lucky and I had a 6-year film contract in my back pocket with Harry Saltzman. Not that I told anybody, but one girl had dropped out. So Harry Saltzman said to me, we need one more girl because there's got to be 12. And so I put on a red wig and practiced an Irish accent, which wasn't used at all. So it was a waste of time, but good fun. We did have fun.
Yes, well, we need one more girl. It's got to be 12 is my life philosophy, Jenny, let me tell you. That's my mantra on this programme.
Are you boasting or complaining?
How about that film? Because it is a classic, and it starred George Lazenby. He was a short-lived Bond, but a very effective one.
He was a short-lived Bond because he was unwisely guided. He felt that because he'd done one film, he was now secure and everything would be fine. And it had just turned the 70s and he wanted to look hippie. So at the premiere, when he was told that he had to be clean-shaven and wear, as you are this evening, beautifully turned out.
Oh, thank you.
he said, no, I want to have long hair, beard, moustache, and that's how he turned out. And that was not really approved of by the Bond people. His agent said, well, I mean, it's a franchise that's dying, so it'll never work.
And the rest is history. And you've had such a long and successful career. Magpie was huge on ITV. How did that gig come about?
I think I wouldn't have got it unless I'd had pneumonia. And because I had pneumonia, I'd been touring with a play during the electricity strikes and things. So I'd cut all my long blonde hair off. Oh, this is much later when my hair had grown back a bit. But I cut my hair very short and got the job and loved it because it appealed to my sort of tomboy side.
Well, it was classic kids' TV, and when you do that genre, you're really connecting with the heart of the nation, aren't you? And the future of the nation, young people and children.
Yes, it's a heady thing of power and fear because you know that people are relying on you and you really must set a good example. But they got me because John Noakes was doing all the dangerous things over on Blue Peter. We couldn't equal him. We had to try and outdo him. So I got to do the escaping from the helicopter underwater, the parachute jumping, everything like that, which was huge fun. But if you think about our charity appeal every Christmas, we asked for cash. We didn't ask for anything that had to be cleaned, collected, or sold. And we were given permission to do that. We were an ITV programme that lasted nearly half an hour, but we didn't have any advertising. So we took it seriously.
Well, you took it seriously. Your career continues, of course. You've done so much radio on the Beeb, Boom Radio. Where can we hear you next?
No, I'm with Boom. I'm happy with Boom, thank you. You've just got to use DAB, which you can get all over the place, as you know now. I may do another play again, but we'll see what happens in the future, God willing.
Well, definitely. And do come and see us in the studio. It's been such a treat to have you on the show to hear all those stories. And do check out Boom Radio. It's the place to be, apart from GBNews Radio, of course. Boom Radio, aimed at listeners over 60, but frankly, it's great for everyone. We had David Hamilton on the show a few weeks ago, and Jenny Hanley, another star of that network. Yeah, what a great guy. Jenny, great to see you and catch up with you soon. The wonderful Jenny Hanley. What a great and delightful lady. Lots more to come, including after this. SAS hero Phil Campion on the importance of the Queen to the military, and in our news agenda, are headphones a nuisance in public? We'll discuss that shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own news from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The British military and the monarchy have always been intertwined, and the Queen is no different. Not only is she the head of our armed forces, but she's the mother and grandmother of people who served our country. As a princess, she joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service in 1945, becoming the first female member of the royal family to join the armed services as a full-time active member. Discussing the importance of the Queen to the military is former SAS hero and best-selling author Phil Campion. Hey, Phil.
How are you, buddy? You all right?
Yeah, I'm loving that T-shirt of yours. You're not doing the undersell tonight, are you?
Waistcoat, mate. I've had it
Oh, it's a waistcoat. Looking very smart. You're glowing, Phil. Listen, tell me about, as a man that served in the military, how totemic, how important the Queen is to what the military do.
Right, from the day you go down to the careers office and you sign on, you sign the oath of allegiance, right? That allegiance is to the Queen. Right, so from the get-go, from day one, you take the Queen's shilling, all right, you literally sign on, you take the Queen's shilling, which was a fiver in my day, it wasn't a shilling anymore, I'm not that old, all right, okay, and you crack on your career like that. The royal family are absolutely so important to the armed forces. You know, you've looked at all these celebrations this weekend, and it's all been sort of like centred around the military, you know, and the two are just entwined. It's the fabric, it's the fabric of our nation.
And does the Queen do a lot for morale within the forces, Phil?
The Queen's a figurehead for the forces. Of course, she does a lot for the morale of the troops. You know, they want to see her well. They want to see that the country prospering under her. Do you know what I mean? We sing the national anthem. We don't just stand there and sort of like mouth it. We sing it. Whenever my feet and heels go together, I stand up bolt upright and I sing the national anthem. Do you know what I mean? It's part of your makeup. It's in there. It's the standard. It's how you are.
And how important is it that future members of the royal family or younger members enter the military or play a role?
I think it's massively important. You know, you lead by example. That's the whole thing. That's what we're taught. You lead by example. And the Queen's no different. And it's one of the humbling things that the Queen's family has. If you look at the nuts and bolts of the family, apart from the fact that they're in the public eye the whole time, you know, they're like any other family. They have problems, they have rows, they have squabbles. You know, the kids play up, don't they? We've all seen Lewis this weekend doing his bits and pieces in front of the whole world, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? It's no different to any other family up and down the country. But they are the family that represent the armed forces. They are the family that represent this country. And that's why we should be behind them.
What's your verdict been on the Jubilee celebrations? Did you think that they would go down that well and that they would unite the country to such an extent?
I hope they would. I hope they would. The fact that they have is absolutely superb. And part of the reason that I'm so buzzing this weekend, like, you know what I mean? Because people have genuinely got involved, genuinely been happy to put that flag outside their house and not be afraid to wave it, you know? It's, all weekend we've been waving them, like, you know? And I love it.
Yeah, too right. And of course, you know, we've talked about the future of the monarchy. Do you think that the future for the royal family is secure? I mean, what are your thoughts about Charles as a military leader? Do you think he'll inspire the forces when he's king?
It's the family. Again, it's the family. If he's the boss and the Queen is the boss at the moment and she hands it over to him, then he becomes the boss. I'm not to question anything about him. He's the boss and that's it. Do you know what I mean? But he's just as inspiring as anybody else. He does his bits and pieces. He puts a shift in. He leads by example. That's what the boss does. And that's what the military need to see.
Has Charles also, you know, won fans within the military? I mean, I take your point about hierarchy and that he will ultimately be the gaffer. He'll be the boss. But is he highly regarded within military circles, Charles?
I'd say so, yeah. You know, he's the colonel-in-chief for the parachute regiment, for a couple of guards battalions. No, I mean, he's up there. He's up there. He does his bits. He turns up to Sandhurst for the passing out parades and all that sort of stuff. He does his bits and pieces where they can. You know, I'm sure if we could get the Royal Tournament back on track, he'd be a regular and supporter of that event. You know.
Phil, when are you coming back on our panel?
Well, mate, call me in. I'm here. You only got
We need you.
Mark.
We need you. We want you. We want the beard, and we want that waistcoat as well.
Absolutely, and the flag. Can I bring the flag next time?
Always. We love it here at GB News. Brilliant stuff. Phil, thank you so much for a brilliant conversation about the Queen and the military. Phil Campion, best-selling author and SAS hero. Brilliant stuff. We'll look lots more to come in the news agenda with my panel. Are headphones in public now a nuisance? Does it bother you that people are riding bicycles, they're going on electric scooters with headphones on, walking down the pavement, bumping into you, going to shops, being noisy in public transport? We'll discuss that very shortly. Plus, we've got another great British game show tonight based around the royals. We're going to play a game of Gen Royal Knowledge. How well do you know the royal family? We'll do that before 11. But it's exactly 10:30, so it's time, as always, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, for the papers with full panel reaction. So let's start with the Financial Times, the FT on the weekend. Rebels close in for Boris Johnson. A photograph of Boris Johnson at the Jubilee celebrations looking rather forlorn as the mood music suggests that many Tory MPs will move against the Prime Minister and provoke a leadership election in the weeks to come. Next up, the Daily Telegraph. While I may not have attended every event in person, my heart has been with you all. The words of the Queen, who reaffirms her commitment to serve the nation in a poignant finale to the Platinum Jubilee. And the Queen, they're looking magnificent in green, a colour that suits her fantastically well. What a true heroine she is. The Guardian next. Another photograph of the Queen looking in full bloom in green. Humbled Queen brings four-day party to an end. The Queen crowned her historic Platinum Jubilee celebrations with an appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, bringing to a close 4 days of festivities that revealed not only the contents of her handbag, Marmalade sandwich, but a nation's undiminished appetite for a partly. Nicely put there by the Guardian's Caroline Davies. Johnson allies accept a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister is close. OK, where should we go next? Let's go to the Metro and magical joy as the Queen appears on the palace balcony for last days of festivities. And it is great to have been able to see her on the last day. She obviously wasn't able to attend all of the events, but for her to close out the ceremony with an appearance on the balcony is, I think, highly appropriate and wonderfully good news. The I newspaper next, another photograph of the Queen and her family on the balcony. The new firm, slimmed down royal family, is revealed in Jubilee finale. You're looking quite simply at Kate and William and their children, the Queen, Charles and Camilla. And that looks to be the new look royal family. Lean, mean, fighting machine. Vote on Johnson future turning toxic for Tories. Conservative rebels accuse the government whips of blackmail and threats as Boris Johnson fights for his political life, with a confidence vote in the Prime Minister possible this week. Daily Star next. After wet weekend, next up, a tropical washout. Long to reign over us. Soggy Brits, fresh from Platinum Jubilee downpours, will be hit again this week when tropical storm Alex races in at 65 miles an hour. Oh, no. And last but not least, The Times, which I have here in my possession, and there is the front page of The Times. Queen's balcony message: this is the future of our monarchy. Slimmed-down royal family pay tribute to crowds as grand pageants and 85,000 picnics bring Jubilee weekend to a close. Those are your front pages, and let's get panel reaction to all of those now. And I like that story in The Guardian about the Queen. Humbled Queen brings four-day party to an end, Amy, and she is a picture of elegance, isn't she? Discretion and integrity.
She really, really is. I mean, her outfits, she's always been my favourite. The outfits, the fact that she does different colours, so I love the green. Well done on that one.
She's a style queen, isn't she?
She's an absolute queen. And I read something really funny, which I absolutely loved, that she was in her slippers and her comfies watching the Derby races in Epsom.
It's got to be done.
And that's exactly how I celebrated it on Friday as well, so I was also a queen, I guess.
Well, hopefully with a little gin and tonic, or is it Dubonnet? I can't remember what
the Queen Mother was Dubonnet, wasn't she? I don't know what the Queen is.
She has something.
Remember, yes.
I'm sure she has a few.
Apparently she likes a gin, according to director Jake, who's
okay.
our unofficial royal expert.
Yeah, I think Dubonnet was her mother's tipple.
How about the Prime Minister? Under pressure, Rakib. Johnson allies accept a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister is close. Is this a disguised opportunity for Boris Johnson, a chance to lance the boil and reaffirm his leadership?
I think he's in a bit of trouble, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think the Sue Gray report into Partygate, I was quite sick of hearing about it, if truth be told, and the amount of media coverage that it received. I think we've got far more serious issues that need addressing in the country. But I think that when you look at the qualities that you want in a Prime Minister, I think things, I think trustworthiness, I think if you set the rules, it's really important that you follow them as strictly as possible, in my view. And you know that some of those measures over the pandemic, they were very strict.
Well, yes, and I, as you know, I've been a vocal critic of most of them, but I haven't broken any myself.
Yeah.
Because I've made a distinction between protesting the measures and ignoring
And more than anything, I think you have added responsibility. If you are the one setting the rules, you need to lead and follow by example.
Yeah.
And if you're going to tell people you need to make immense sacrifices for the greater good, then you need to participate in that. And I saw some figures, the Wakefield by-election coming up, it's really not looking good for the Conservatives. So that sort of Brexit realignment, essentially, is very much under threat.
Yeah, and the booing, the alleged booing, because some commentators challenged that the Prime Minister was booed. They say he wasn't booed, others say he was. But if there was some booing from this royalist crowd, who you'd expect to be quite, you know, well, politically...
Or Tory-leaning, perhaps.
Possibly Tory-leaning, certainly not sort of woke lefties anyway.
No.
Therefore, was that a moment, do you think, in his premiership, the booing at the Jubilee?
Well, I think he had a fantastic opportunity to establish a government, you know, stamping his own political authority. In terms of a sort of exciting post-Brexit project, this is New Britain. And I think he squandered that, if truth be told. I think things like Partygate have been a real distraction. You might think that there's been too much media attention on Partygate, but then you have to see where the origins lie. And I do feel that the Prime Minister, I think that considering he had such a large parliamentary majority, he had the opportunity to do some great things in the post-Brexit environment, but it looks like his position's under threat.
Well, that's right. Nigel Farage, he's quoted this week on Twitter, of course, of this parish, Ingrid. He tweeted, "When a Prime Minister is roundly booed by the crowd on a day of national Thanksgiving, you know it's all over." Is it? Is it going up? Is the Fat Lady singing?
If we're going to base it's over because of the booing, we have to go back to addressing, were they really booing? Because Sky did it, and I can't remember which way around it is. So Sky had coverage of it, and the BBC. And one of them, there was booing, and on the other one, there wasn't. And there's a real controversy about this, because some people are saying, I was there, I heard the booing. Other people are saying, well, there wasn't where I was. So do you know what? You can't even trust what appears to be live coverage that isn't being tampered with. Because one of them has been, either the booing has been taken out and removed, or they've overlaid it on a soundtrack. Bearing in mind, talking about Farage, that if it wasn't for Farage actually giving Boris his votes, in the first place, he wouldn't have had that majority in Parliament in any case. And bear in mind that he was originally a Remainer and switched to being Brexit. So is he really genuine in heart? But I will say one thing, and I do give Boris a big bashing a lot. But with the Partygate, I know I'm sick and tired of it, because actually I think I couldn't care less about that. And I know this will, but you have to hear me out, please. I've had horrible things said about this in the past. Listen to what I'm saying. They were at work. They are in a working environment, so they are mixing with these people all the time. So if there's a cake or there's a drink or there's a beer, so what? That is their working bubble. Like you will have the nurses, the police, the fire brigade, the people working at Amazon, the people working in the supermarket, the delivery people, the postman.
Work is a bubble, and it was a bubble during the pandemic.
Exactly. And actually, the picture that they held up at the very, very beginning, which is the one to shoot him down, they were actually social distancing in the garden. But, you know, you have to allow the Queen, because she was older, she probably wouldn't have been surrounded by the normal people that would be in her working day. But you can bet that all the others, the servants, the cooks, the chefs, everybody, they will be working together because they have to feed and support the royal household. So if somebody has a party because it's their birthday or there's a baby born or anything, there's going to be drinks and cakes and whatever. I really don't have a problem with that, and I don't think you should be singled out for that one little bit. And I feel very strongly about that, actually.
But, Mark, if I could just add one point. There was also in the Sue Gray report how cleaners, for example, a culture of mistreating.
Oh yeah, that was horrible.
Workers.
That was unnecessary.
So I think that there's a bigger story.
Yes,
seems to be a bigger story brewing. Hence anger on the Tory backbenches. Well, watch this space. Let's have a look now at the Times' front page. Queen's balcony message. This is the future of our monarchy. Slimmed down royal family pay tribute to crowds. And that's an interesting development, Amy, that perhaps the Queen is future-proofing the royal family by shrinking it and therefore making it more focused and cheaper. What do you think? Will it work? What do you think about fewer royals being paid handsomely to represent the country?
So I actually think it's absolutely possible and would work. I'm not a massive royalist. I love the royal family. To me, this is them.
Right.
I don't know, you know, I just think of these guys.
You're not fussed about the others.
Exactly.
The minor
I'm not
characters.
fussed about the cousins and the second cousins first removed and the whatever. I just want
Don't
these
you miss
guys.
Andy? Not the same without old Prince Andrew, is it?
I think we can do without him. I think we can do without him.
Rakib, is it time to forgive and forget? Bring old Andy back?
No. No, I really don't. I'm a big supporter of the royal family. I'm pro-monarchy. But I think sometimes you have to make tough decisions, and he's fell well below the standards that you'd expect of members of our royal family. Queen made a tough decision. I think it was the correct one.
The correct one. We've got a couple more pages in. Where should we go next, Tom? We've got The Independent. Queen springs surprise to thrill crowd. Here it comes. And also climate cost of Sunak's tax breaks for fossil fuels. Planned projects could generate up to 899 million tonnes of CO2. If you've got a strong view on climate change, why don't you check out my big opinion monologue, which you can find on Twitter at GBNews, in which I've got strong words for Prince William and his climate lecture at last night's Jubilee celebrations. OK, where should we go next? We've got any other front pages? Well, I've got the Mail here, and that's the front page. My heart has been with you all. Another beaming photograph of our wonderful monarch. As magnificent celebrations climax in pageantry and parties for millions, the Queen's poignant message to her nation, and a similar theme on the front page of the Mirror. My heart is with you all. And that's a great photograph, isn't it? The Queen and her great-grandson.
Amazing that she's 96. Look at her. I mean...
She looks great for that.
Fabulous. She's got better, clearer, unwrinkly skin than I have. Can I just say something?
Well, that's because of all your ex-husbands. It puts years on you, doesn't it?
It's the vodka.
Never marry a man in show business.
Exactly.
Let me tell you.
Can I just say something very, very quickly? Because it's relevant with the Queen and Paddington Bear and the marmalade sandwich.
Well, that was beautiful.
Which is fantastic.
TV gold.
Yeah, but shall I just want to tell you a little bit of trivia about Marmalade.
Please
and
do.
how it got its name.
Yes, please do.
Queen Mary... when she was ill, she used to love oranges. It made her feel better. So they would make this kind of jam thing that with orange in it, and they would say they'd run down to the kitchen and say that we need this like thing because ma, as in ma'am, malade, ill.
That's remarkable. What a story. You see, I tell
Do
you
you
what,
like it?
it's like a mini episode of QI, isn't it? And lovely Ingrid is our Stephen Fry. Brilliant stuff. Well, I do enjoy the Marmalade. Do you go shredded or shredless, by the way?
Oh, no, I shredded.
Shredded?
Shredded.
Amy?
Absolutely.
Ricky, shredded or shredless?
I couldn't care less.
Why? You'll just take it either way?
No, I'm really
Fine
not
or
fussed at
thick
all.
cut?
Not fussed at all.
Not going down the Marmalade
Not fussed
route.
at all.
Fine or thick cut, though?
I'm shredless.
Oh, are you?
Just generally. Story of my life. Ask Mrs. Dolan. Lots more to come after this. Are headphones in public a nuisance? Plus, a royal Great British Game Show. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Thank you for your emails. It's been such a busy show. I would love to have read more out. I love getting your emails. I read all of them after the show. But let me get a couple whilst we're on air. This from Paul, who says, we threw a party for the Queen to celebrate her 70 years of service. She didn't throw us one, so why should we pay? We've had a monarchy for 1,000 years, so these 20-somethings need to pipe down and will never bring into the British economy as much as the Queen does in a month. Paul, thank you for that very well-written email. And let's have a look, finally. Oh, yeah, Tell. Good evening, Mark. Fabulous monologue, as always. Always look forward to your show. Just wanted to say a massive thank you to all the GB News team, presenters and backroom staff for by far the best coverage of Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee. GB News should take a bow. Such a pleasure to watch you this bank holiday weekend. Patriotic coverage like the channel has broadcast this weekend has been so refreshing. Give yourselves a big, massive pat on the back. Well, Tell, thank you for the kind words. We are nothing without you. So if you're watching the show and the channel, if you're enjoying what we do, then tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. Now, moving on, cyclists and e-scooters should be banned from wearing headphones after a series of fatal accidents, according to campaigners. At the moment, it's not against the law, but France and Spain have a complete ban, whilst in Portugal and Italy, they let you go around with one earphone in. It seems you can't go anywhere without seeing the majority now wearing headphones out and about, sometimes little in-ear ones, sometimes massive things, half the size of their head. There is, of course, a time and a place for headphones, but on the road and even on public transport, in shops and on the pavement, are people who wander around with headphones on a public nuisance? Rakib?
I think for me, I feel that Portugal and Italy have it right. So they only allow for one ear. to have a earphone, AirPod, and I think that's about right. I think it's no harm when you're on your walkabouts, you listen to a little bit of music, but I do think having both ears occupied, I think that presents certain risks, if truth be told.
Also, do you think it's antisocial behaviour? Because, I mean, I always seem to bump into people that are wearing headphones.
That's
might be my fault.
I think that naturally, if you only have one ear in, if it's only just one ear, I think you can just navigate yourself a lot better and you're more aware of your surroundings. Well, I think if you have both ears in, I think that somewhat impacts on your navigation ability. And you're just not as aware of your surroundings if you have both ears in. So I don't do it personally. I just have one ear.
I will admit.
Just one ear.
Amy?
I will admit on numerous occasions I've put them in to avoid speaking to people. So yes, it might be
I'm glad you didn't
an
wear any
antisocial behaviour. Well, it's all the hairs covering them. But yeah, I wouldn't say they're a nuisance. I would say we need to focus more on making it a law to wear a helmet on an e-scooter, to quit smoking whilst driving. I think we're focusing on a really silly thing to bring in a law of.
Do you not think it's sad, though, that people want to insulate themselves from the outside world? I mean, even if it's not a nuisance, somebody walking down the street with massive headphones on is just not connected to their environment.
I agree with that point, but at the same time, it allows them to, whatever stress they've just left, whatever, they've just left work and it was a bit rubbish, it allows them to just breathe and just almost meditate within the music.
You're definitely not convinced.
No, I am.
But also,
I'm
they need to ban. I would say, if anything, ban headphones for the damage that it does to your eardrums.
Well, that's a really, really good point. I do think we'll have a generation that will be wearing special headphones when they're 80. It'll be hearing aids again.
Exactly.
But do you not take my point about this rather sort of sad dystopian society in which people are sat on public transport in their own little bubble, listening to a podcast, DAB, GBNews possibly, or music?
Yeah.
Why can't we just be around each other?
Because we just can't. I mean,
COVID.
Yeah, I do think we are so squashed as well. I do think, as you say, we need our space and time, and whatever that might be, it could be reading the newspaper, it could be reading a book. You're completely in your zone there, so why not music? But I mean, I do agree that sort of if you're somewhere on it, especially on a train or a bus, and you just hear that kind of boom, boom and everything, that's really annoying. But the question was about the scooters, these e-scooter things, and I just think, oh, nanny. Here we go again. Surely it is up to the individual, and I'm absolutely with you, Amy, on the thing. Why aren't they talking about helmets? That is much more a threat to their safety and life than going around with headphones. I drive the car with music on, and sometimes it's very loud. So that, to me, my car becomes my music machine, my headphone. There's no distraction. And also, I keep going on and on, don't I, as well?
Well, that's why we get you on the show.
Yeah.
You're at your best when you go on and on.
I know. But the other thing is,
I mean, she's paid by the words.
Yes, I am, actually. I am earning
must have made a fortune today, then,
millions tonight.
I need to speak more. Let me...
Yeah. But do you know, it is not illegal to drive, because you are saying you're blocking out everything else. It is not illegal to drive if you're deaf anywhere in the world.
That is very interesting.
So that is interesting itself, because what you're saying, and actually it's the other people on the road. My parents always used to say to me, it's not you that's the bad driver, it's the other people. So ask or tell us how are these people getting it? And you keep saying you bump into people, you need your eyes tested.
I probably should have gone to Specsavers. Very briefly, what is the music you listen to loudly in the car?
Oh,
what's
it
your
varies.
playlist?
Oh,
rock and
God,
roll?
I love rock. I love ballads. I love jazz. Yeah, I do. Love Magic. I love Smooth. Boom. I've been listening to Boom. Thank you, Jenny.
And, of course, GB News Radio, which is on DAB+. A couple of seconds on this one. A dog who went missing during a sled race across Alaska has been found 3 months after he got lost. He disappeared at the 150-mile mark of a 940-mile race back in March. The owners thought he'd gone. He was reunited with them after 3 months. Is there anything you've been reunited with after a long, long time? Amy?
So I hope my parents aren't watching, because this is no reflection on them as parents. They were great parents. But when I was probably...
You found your parents.
I want to say I was 15, but really I was probably like 13 or 12. But I hid a really cheap bottle, you know, disgusting Glen's vodka. Don't ask me how I got it. And I hid it in the hedge outside in our family house, and then completely forgot I'd hid it there. And then when I was 18, I had a house party in the garden and we found it.
Remarkable.
And I blamed my mum.
Outrageous.
My
You are
mum.
so naughty. Listen,
have you confessed?
Nothing wrong with a drop of Glen's
Just
vodka. You sometimes get to that point in the evening when it's time for a Glen's. And I'm quite happy to be the face of Glen's vodka if they're watching. Now, it's time for the Great British Game Show. It's a royal special, a Gen Royal knowledge game. That's right.
I love that.
And let's start with
gonna
this
lose.
question number one, testing you at home and our panel in the studio. How many grandchildren does the Queen have?
Oh, let's count.
Is it 7, 8 or 9?
8.
8.
Ingrid's doing her homework on this one.
9.
The points go to Amy and Rakib. It is 8.
Oh, I miscounted then.
Peter,
Obviously.
Zara,
Shame.
William, Harry, Beatrice,
Yeah, same.
Eugenie, Louise, and Viscount 7, and a few others. OK, how about this? The Queen lives in 3 places: Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, and...
Sandringham.
Nope.
Oh.
She's got Sandringham, but she doesn't live there. She lives in
Balmoral.
Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, and Balmoral Castle. Well done.
Yeah.
That was going to be my 5th guess.
On what note does the Queen's face appear?
20.
20.
5.
It's all of them.
It's only...
Yeah.
5, 10, 20 and 50.
Trick question.
What year was the Queen born? We know she's 96.
926.
1926.
Oh, you're too good. Well done. How about what car does the Queen famously drive?
Rolls-Royce.
Range Rover.
Range Rover is the right answer. Who is third in line to the throne?
Oh, third. George.
It is.
Yeah.
Well done. And last but not least, what are the Queen's 2 middle names?
Oh,
Yes, you're close.
Alexandra.
Alexandra. And then? Alexandra?
Regina must be...
No,
Mary.
the next name is the name of the Mother of God.
Mary.
There you go.
I said Mary.
Alexandra, did you?
Yes.
The points go.
I did.
And the game goes to Ingrid. Thank you to my brilliant panel. Come back and see us soon. Thanks for your company. It's been a great weekend. Stick around. I'm doing headliners, and I'm back on Friday at 9.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GBNews for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed.